Hey guys, what's up? Rain here. We have early access hotfix number 6. Tons of amazing changes here. I'm just going to go over real quick. This is just the typical standard stuff. Downtime is starting 11:30 a.m. The huge announcement here, the first early access wipe will be held next Monday. All character levels, items, gold, and skills will be reset. Bluestone shards will never reset. Triumph levels will not be reset this time and will only reset at the start of official seasons. A new early access leaderboard will start shortly after the wipe once things have stabilized. So we're going to get new leaderboard. We're going to level our characters again. Full wipe will be on next Monday. So I'm wondering if what they say next Monday, right? Because today is Tuesday. So I'm assuming this is going to be Monday, the 28th of August. And now they've got a ton of patch notes here. So we'll jump into these. An additional character slot has been added, so you can create at least one of each class now. So that's really nice. You can have your Warlock and your Bard and all your other classes, and you can level everything to 20. You don't need a new account. You don't need to delete anything. That's super nice. Currency used to unlock classes has been returned. Awesome. So if you bought a class with, if you bought the Warlock or the Bard prior to them removing them from the store and just unlocking them for everybody, you got your money back. Whether it was red tokens or blue, you'll have those returned. Game time has been slightly increased for the normal Inferno map. That's awesome. So when you go down, you're going to have more time to loot, more time to deal with monsters, more time to do the boss. I think this is great. This will help people learn a little bit better, and it's just a fantastic change. Game time has been increased for all high roller maps. Awesome. So high roller, if you didn't know, was currently running at kind of like an accelerated pace. I think they were trying to make it more difficult, but it was causing the game just to feel way too rushed. People didn't want to do it. You end up just trying to clear like one room, and then the game's 3/4 of the way over and you're running from the zone. So hopefully this will get more high roller interaction, which should solve the issue of having a ton of people with like purple armor or blue armor inside your games. Added an additional blue portal to the Death Swarm. Closing times have been modified to close slower for the Goblin Caves maps. Okay, so I believe that means at the very end where the Death Swarm is closing in, they're adding an additional portal. So you get 2 spawned on Goblin Cave instead of just 1 guaranteed. So that way if it spawns on a different floor from you, it'll be more likely that you'll have something. Yeah, so that's a great change here. Shrine of Protection, physical damage reduction buff has been reduced from 30% to 15%. Okay, so that's going to prevent fighters from being able to get ludicrous amounts of physical damage reduction just by sitting around Shrines of Protection. We also have pots and crates give a little bit of EXP when broken instead of 0 XP. So previously you only got XP from killing monsters, opening chests, opening portals, interacting with shrines, stuff like that. So now breaking pots as well as the wooden crates will give you some experience, which will make you level a little bit quicker here. Small quality of life update, silver coins now stacked to 30 instead of 25 per slot. That's going to be big for us. Because it's 3 to 1, this gives you a 10 stack instead of having a weird 25 where you end up with 5 coins left over. This will just be more efficient for stashes and makes them feel a little bit better to pick up. They now have the same value. So if you can get 30 coins on a run of silver coins or 10 gold coins, the same value as far as the inventory slot to value. The armor rating curve has been modified and slightly flattened at a very high range. So this is going to make it harder for damage reduction fighters to be sitting there at like 98% damage reduction and just taking no damage. It looks like they also have capped the physical damage reduction at 85%. This means that fighters will no longer be able to get to that complete immunity status. No matter how many different things, whether you get a Shrine of Protection or whatever, you're never going to be sitting at like 100% damage reduction anymore. You will always take some damage. Rogue's Double Jump. Okay, this is interesting. Rogue's Double Jump has been modified to apply a temporary movement speed reduction upon landing. Okay, so when you double jump, you're going to get slowed for a bit, as well as the maximum height of the double jump has been slightly reduced. I'm okay with this. I feel like rogues in their current state are just way too much of a pain to deal with. A good rogue can basically endlessly just terrorize your team with 0 consequences and risking virtually nothing, right? They're not really reliant on gear. You can have a gray crossbow and just kind of jump around the entire map and just shoot people all game and be very, very difficult, if not impossible to catch, depending on the class that they're messing with. And so I think this is a good tuning. Rogue's weak point attack now reduces the target's armor rating by 40% instead of reducing the physical damage reduction. Okay, so it's just going to nerf your current armor instead of the overall physical damage reduction. Because the damage reduction was nerfed, I think they're switching this to make it scale a little bit better. Rogue can no longer equip the hand crossbow. Okay, well that solves that problem. That was a major issue, is a rogue could come in with, 40 bolts and a hand crossbow and just be a nuisance the entire game. Even though he wasn't super like threatening to kill you, he could just drive your team nuts for the entire duration of the game. So I think this is good. I didn't think it was healthy gameplay. It was very frustrating to fight, very frustrating to deal with. In my opinion, not fun. It is fun if you're the rogue, but everyone else is not really enjoying it. All right, so Fighter's Taunt ability, physical damage reduction reduced from 15% to 10%. So a slight nerf to Fighter's damage reduction again with the Taunt ability. Fighter's Barricade gives plus 50 armor rating in defensive position instead of plus 15% physical damage reduction. It seems like they're trying to step away from the flat out physical damage reduction and allow the new armor scaling to work. So 50 armor rating really early on is going to be way more effective than 50 armor rating when you've already got, 400 armor. So then you can kind of decide if you want to take Barricade based off of what your current gear is. Ranger's Penetrating Shot now grants 25% more armor penetration, and an error in the description text has been fixed. Okay, so Rangers just got way better at dealing with fighters that are in high armor. 25% more armor penetration on the Penetrating Shot is huge. So you're really going to want to look out for Rangers that are running this. I don't know if there's a visual indicator, but that's something I would try and learn if you are a fighter and see when they have that armor penetration shot out, because that will wreck you now. Bard's Din of Darkness. If you didn't know, this is when they play the drum and it hits everything around them for AoE damage. It kind of had the exact same problem as the last playtest with the Cleric when they could do the Locust Swarm. And it stacked way too much with magical damage. So you could basically just insta-kill an entire team through a wall or whatever with it. And it looks like that is being adjusted. So before, when they played a bad song, a good song, and a really great song, they had 10%, 30%, and 50% damage ratios. And now we're down to 6, 9, and 12%. So massive nerf to the damage on that. People will probably stop using it and just use the nerf to the stats, but that's probably better. If they're not going to change the line of sight stuff, it was definitely way too strong, being able to just nuke an entire team through a wall. So that's a good change here. Explosive Bottle and Oil Lantern now do magical damage instead of physical damage. Interesting. So that's now a counter to someone who's building a lot of like physical damage reduction, right? If you have a fighter that's sitting at 85% damage reduction, you can start running Oil Lanterns and Explosive Bottles to deal magical damage to them, even if you're like a fighter or a bard or barbarian, stuff like that, to kind of supplement your other damage type. Instruments are now only bard, or can now only be used by the bard. So I assume this means that you won't be able to hold them in your tool belt anymore, and you probably won't be able to throw drums if you're not a bard. So slight nerf there to the other classes. I think that's fine. Significantly reduce the values for physical damage reduction that appear as random attribute items. Okay, we're nerfing it again. So there's just going to be less items all around, and the values for them are going to be lower. So when you find an item that has physical damage reduction on it, instead of having 4%, it's going to be 2% or something like that. Falchion damage has been slightly reduced. I think that's good. Falchion, I think, was overperforming. Often I noticed as a one-hander, it would do more damage than like a longsword, and I think that's just too much. So that being reduced a bit is a good thing. And it looks like they've added some armor penetration here to the windlass crossbow, the normal crossbow, and the hand crossbow. Those all will do some armor penetration with their attacks. All right, so the Flaying Mace and the Morningstar have 15% armor penetration now, so that's really sweet. That's a great cleric buff for me. So when I'm dealing with fighters and things like that, people who have armor, I just have a base 15% armor penetration because that's the only weapons I can use, basically. And then they've also buffed the War Maul again, and they've increased its armor penetration by 30%. So when you start landing hits with this thing, it's really gonna just knock some heads. So that's a cool buff there. I think the War Maul is pretty underused right now. So yeah, pretty good there. Magic Staff now have magical damage by default. Okay, so this is something, that's another reason the staffs were terrible. Not only is the cast animation bad, they reduce your movement speed by more. And They also just didn't have magic damage on them by default, right? A gray spellbook gives you +2 magic damage, whereas a gray staff gave you nothing. And so now you're just going to have that. I assume they'll probably follow the same stats as the books. So we'll probably have +2 on a gray, +3 on a white, +4 on a green, +5 on a blue, +6 on a purple, and +7 on a legendary staff. Maybe that actually makes these viable. It might be worth dealing with it just to have the extra damage. So yeah, and it is nice because the magic staff does give you a melee weapon, whereas when you're using the book, that is the one downside of it in compared to the staff. And finally, they reduced the base projectile damage reduction values for plate armors. So another reduction to fighter getting nerfed again. Plate armors are no longer going to be as effective at reducing projectile damage. They also have a little notification here that if you are wearing an item that is now moved to unwearable, I assume these are like instruments, they may not temporarily be visible, but it looks like when you go into a dungeon, that'll fix it for you. And that's about it here for Hotfix 6. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all later.